Hello, my name is Adaeze Atason. I am the president of Adaeze Atason Family Club. Believe it or not, I just spoke for almost 24 minutes, only to find out that I didn't turn on my mic. Deep breath. All right. Today, we continue our conversation in our book discussion of the book written by Jacob Abbott, Gentle Measures in the Management and Training of the Young. We are in part 2. Before we start this conversation, I want to make a quick disclaimer. I think the word punishment is best replaced with the word consequence because language has changed over time. And I find that consequence captures the fundamental principle that Mr. Jacob is trying to pass to us. And going forward, we are going to call him Uncle Jacob because he's now a family member, bringing his wisdom into our lives to make things easier for us in our parenting journey. And I think it will also help us to be less resistant in our mind towards what he's trying to teach us. Having said that, if you're like me and after you listened to part 1 and you looked at the most excluded list, you felt daunted, it is natural that you should feel daunted. But let's all first agree on this one thing. We are here because we want to know better, to do better. We are pursuing a higher and nobler height. And we can all look forward to the benefits, the tangible benefits that we'll enjoy on the other side of this mountain when we get through. Because a life where you can train your children without irritation and annoyance and agitation it almost sounds like heaven on earth. And Uncle Jacob is telling us that it is possible, it's attainable. So we are going to do our part, hear him out, and practice what he's teaching and see whether we'll get some benefit from changing our method to his methods. All right. So we'll start this conversation with the mindset that most of us have that when we are communicating consequence to a child and we don't have this serious look on our face, we are not showing displeasure or anger, that the child doesn't take us serious. It doesn't make the right impression or the proper impression on the child's mind. But that idea is wrong. At least the book tells us that it is a wrong or a mistaken point of view, because to make an impression in a child's mind, you don't need those negative exhibitions. In fact, the negative exhibitions interfere with the information you're trying to pass to the child because it causes them to have conflicting communication. Okay? Right. So, case in point, you see mothers that don't shout, they don't raise up their voice, and their children are obedient, they are amiable, and they are almost perfect. I know you might be raising up your eyebrows or nodding your head like, yeah, right. But I have seen women like that. I've experienced it. And like some of us right now, I made excuses. I found ways to dismiss their success. I said to myself that their children are different. It's because they are from this tribe or from the other tribe. But the reality on ground is that It's not necessarily the case, and that is really the point I'm getting from this book. It's about your own ability and skill to manage your children. In this book, in this chapter, he tells two stories about Auntie Jane and Mommy Mary. Auntie Jane is Mary's mother. She comes over for a visit, takes Mary for a walk, tells Mary not to walk on grass. Mary decides to walk on grass because she felt that it was dry. Auntie Mary tells Auntie Jane tells Mary, sorry, I'm not going to continue this walk anymore because I can't trust you. I don't feel comfortable, going out with a child that I cannot trust that they will obey me instantly when I ask them to do something because I can't keep them safe. And she does all these things, telling her they're not going, they've turned back, they are heading home. She's picking flowers, she's helping her make it into a bouquet, and they are talking gently and she's saying what she's saying and they are going home. On the other hand, Mary is taken on a walk by her mom, the same situation. She runs off on the grass after she's told not to do that. And instead of the mom to apply consequence, which is what it should be, because you already told the child that don't do this, and which is also in line with the principle that Uncle Jacob keeps saying, that a child should never get away with disobedience or not listening to the parent, even if the consequence is ever so slight. The mother doesn't do anything about the situation. She just continues to nag and complain and lament and scold Mary. And Mary continues to run off and play on the grass. And they continue to go on the walk. So at the end of the day, the mom is agitated. Mary is having fun because she's on the grass. She's still going for her walk. And generally speaking, she will not hear most of what the mother is saying because she's kind of off in a distance. So at the end of the day, you see that even though Mary's mom exasperated herself, she didn't really achieve anything. And this is what you see a lot in parents. You would have witnessed this in church or witnessed it in the playground or in the marketplace, especially in supermarkets when the child is trying to get their will on something. You just hear the mother just lament and complain, but the child still gets away with everything they are doing. So the point of this conversation is that the two methods, you know, will produce a result, but in training of a child, what result are you trying to attain? And in listening to this story, you might be saying, objection, my lord, I disagree with you. We are mothers, we are not aunties. We don't have the luxury that Auntie Jane has, probably sweeping in once in every 6 months or 7 months and dazzle the child and go off. Yes, I agree with you. I hear you, and your objection is valid. However, Uncle Jacob says that this type of method that Auntie Jane used is not something that you will use all the time as a mother. It's something you use once or twice to make a determinant point that no matter the situation, you must be obeyed. And that leaves a strong impression on the child, followed by the other things that you're doing, which is every time there is a disobedience, there is some sort of consequence coming from it. Every time. The repetition is the point. All of them comes together to make it a strong impression on the child's mind that my parents mean business. Okay? I find that there are 2 points that he made using this story that made a strong impression on me because I've seen how it has played out in my own life, which is the point that if Mary was managed like this from infancy, then it will not be necessary to do it at this point. You will notice that she would have been in the habit of, listening to the parents. And I find that this is true because most of us, lose the opportunity of training our children during infancy. I once knew a woman who trained a 6 month old child not to potty when he had his diaper on. However, she had other children after that child. For some reason or the other, she didn't train them to do the same. But the point is that a 6 month old could be trained not to use potty. And she's not the only one. I've heard other stories, but that one I saw it live. I know the person, you know. So I think, or I know, that most mothers waste the time of infancy thinking the child doesn't understand or that they are too cute and adorable to be exposed to the harsh world of training. It then happens that with each time the child gets their way in infancy, it is then 10 times how much time you're going to invest to retrain them in order to them to learn to do that thing differently. So if we start on time, we are consistent, we are persistent from the time they are 6 months, they've started to understand rules of life and rules of engagement. By the time they are 2, we have gotten them to understand who is in authority in that relationship. And this is a time that the consequences are not much. The things they are doing are not so bad that you'll be irritated. So it's actually easy for you to apply this principle and make sure that you abide by the must exclude list. But if you miss this opportunity, you will be dealing henceforth from the 2 years old with the real tangible power of real power in a human being. And the children, they don't know how to contain or control it. They exhibit it to the maximum. The second thing I find foundational to this lesson is that excluding these things on the must exclude list from your conversation with your child does not reduce effects. In fact, I find from experience, recent experience, that actually strengthens your communication. We are going to stop here for today. In part 3 of chapter 5, we will talk about cooperation of the offender and playful punishment. I hope you are excited and expectant. If you watched till the end, I want to thank you. And I also want you to tell me honestly if you believe anywhere in your heart that this is possible. Frankly, right now, I do believe a little because at the beginning, in chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, I was like, this cannot happen. This cannot happen. But I can tell you for a fact that I have been able to practically use some of these principles in today's world with a Gen Alpha. And I do know that it is really, really dependent on the skill of the parent. It is really dependent on the skill of the parent. Noble one, farewell to the next video and thank you for watching.